This conference will now be recorded.
Thanks, Michael, for recording. Was Paul able to make it?
I'm checking. Paul, are you online?
Just a new caller joined. That may be Paul.
Are you all able to see
He's trying a different browser now.
Okay, so on the Michael, thanks for starting the recording. Welcome all to the telco call for the month of March. Today is March 6th. We'll kind of open it up, meaning I think today we have a couple topics. One is by the Silicom team on the accelerated UCPE. Then we can do a quick status on the Open Edge sub-project. I am not sure if Mike Moore is on, but Craig, maybe you could do that, right? And then finally we'll talk about the OCP summit and some plans on what we will do there. So I'm going to wait to see if Paul was able to make it to the call.
Paul from Silicom is here.
Oh, great. Thanks
Perfect.
for joining. Perfect timing. And you can get started with the UCPE presentation.
Actually, before he does that, I would like to give a quick introduction to the team members who do not know what the topic is from the Silicom side, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
I do that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so this is Elad from Silicom, and about a year ago, AT&T went through the process of getting the specs of the Universal CPE program approved at OCP. And after they were approved, they selected Intel and Silicom to go ahead and execute on those specs. Silicom did just that. And what we're here is an ability to present the actual designs to you, and we would like to start contributing them to OCP. We have 4 platforms, all per the AT&T spec, and we would like to get those approved and to contribute them. There are a few pieces in there that are
Okay, that sounds good. I think even Tom mentioned we have heard these presentations before, definitely, and that's the direction, and it's good. But I think on the as a meaning not speaking as an AT&T, but as the lead for the telco group, I think it's also good for the community to know about your plans on making these open, right? And if you're saying that's the intent, that we welcome that. And if you can share plans on how you plan to, how you will make it open by contribution or those kind. I think that's probably the discussion we would like to have as well.
Yes, so Boris here. We are planning to contribute those 3 designs, and we are planning to contribute them as OCP accepted. So we're just starting. I think I mentioned in the emails, I don't know if everybody saw that. So we didn't do it until now because we were still finalizing the design. There were a lot of changes, etc. So one of the designs is finalized. Another 2 are going to be finalized very soon, maybe in a month tops, that's my guess. and so we can go ahead with contributing the first one, the extra small, so to speak, and the medium and large. We're probably going to do somewhere in Q2.
Okay, that's excellent. Very good news.
And yeah, it would really be nice if we could get the specification.
Craig, I think it's hard to hear you. You speak a little louder. You're coming in very faint.
Yeah, I was just saying, I don't know if this helps. But it would be really nice if we could get the specification outline in a draft form we could put onto the distribution so that we could begin to get some comments back and where the designs are issued.
I'm really sorry, but I really can't hear anything. If you guys maybe can repeat if somebody heard what Craig said, I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Craig, I think we're also hearing a lot of background noise, maybe the mic.
So I think if I picked up a little bit about what Craig was saying, he was asking about the specification, and I think that this is going to be a design that fits the AT&T UCPE spec, which has already been accepted.
Yes.
And then I think Craig was also asking when we might be able to see the first contributions, and I guess that's really what you're doing here on the call is to tell us that.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. So
does this help any?
Yes, I think now it's better.
Is it better? Okay. Yeah, that was exactly it, Tom. I think that because it would be an accepted design, we should have a product specification and then expect to get the design package at some point later. And so as soon as possible, it would be nice to have those specifications to be listed into our draft section so that people can begin to, look at them, make comments, whatever on those so that it's not rushed at the end to get those comments in before we, do the final checklist and stuff for the IC.
Of course. So we are a little bit new to this, so that would be our first design contributed. So we might need a little help with the process here and there. But generally speaking, yes, that's like I said, that we can go ahead with the first design basically as soon as possible. That would be me and Paul, me leading the Silicon OCP effort, so to speak, and Paul being the technical expert on those. So yeah, we're ready to go ahead.
I will even add more than that. A part of our contract with white box initiatives such as the AT&T is to contribute everything that we do to OCP. So it goes without saying. It's just a matter of when the design is complete so we can properly contribute it. And just to repeat the message, the specs have already been submitted and approved by AT&T about a year ago.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. We also have a checklist that will help identify all of the things that are required for the OCP, and we can quicker we can get that going, the easier the process is at the end for you. So we'll talk to you about it though, either at the summit probably, and have a discussion about that.
Sounds good. Let's meet at the summit and discuss.
Oh yes, no worries.
Perfect. Should we go ahead with a few slides by Paul, who can give you just a quick high-level overview of the product?
Sure. Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead. Let me. Who do I need to give presenting rights to?
To Paul.
Yep.
Okay, let me know if you see the screen.
Yes. We do.
Okay, so Boris let me know today to put together some high-level slides talking about the architecture and the product. You may have seen some of these in the past. I'm not positive. So this is our UCP architecture. So what we've done is we've separated the compute management and I/O. So that allows this platform to be extremely flexible. So we have several compute modules now based on Atom and various versions of Xeon D. And we have numerous I/O modules now based on various technologies for copper, fiber, 1, 2.5 gig, 10 gig, PoE, switched, non-switched. Now we're moving on to GFast and XDSL and other options. And on the management side, we allow configurations for pass-through, meaning no BMC. We have options, and then we have options for BMC. And then there's also possibilities of dual wide or triple wide cards that would complete all of these slots. So here's an example of our compute boards today. On the left, we have the Atom C3000, which is going to be used on the extra small UCPE. In the middle, we have a Broadwell DE compute board that's used on the small, medium, and large UCPE, and the Skylake D on the right, which is we're in final prototypes of that. And these can be mixed and matched. All the IOs can work between in any of the cards, and so that allows for more flexibility. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the extra small. So again, this is based on the Atom 4-core, although you can scale it, 2-core up to 16-core if desired. Supports up to 32 gig of memory. Our standard config is 8 gigabytes. Storage, eMMC. There's an option for a SATA M.2. The main I/O in the front are switch based. So all the LAN and WAN ports go through the switch, and there are 2.5 gig ports back to the host CPU. We have a 1 gig management port, and I'll in the block diagram, you'll see a lot more of this. So we have 1 gig management port. It's also shared with the BMC. The BMC on here is our micro BMC. I don't know, Boris and Elad should have talked about that at some point. That is our version of a more secure BMC. It's not based on a speed part. It's not based on an IPMI stack. It actually has a built-in firewall and additional security features, which we think is more targeted for the UCPE market. Has a TPM, QAT is built into the C2000 or C3000, 2 external USB ports, 2 internal USB ports, console, external power adapter, and we support dying GASP with the BMC. And this is a desktop, so it's a half rack width, so you could fit 2 of these side by side in a rack. And as you see in the picture there, there's 1 slot that's not used, so that could be used for future expansion, any of those cards that I talked about before. And here's a block diagram. And I had to adjust this from a block diagram that we had today just because it was such an eye chart, and I wanted to be able to at least present the high level features that you could see. So does my mouse show up when I'm displaying, or do you just see the picture?
Yes, it does.
No, we
Okay.
see the mouse. Very nice. Yeah.
Okay, so working my way around it, 2 channels of memory, like I said. So the standard config is we have memory down, and the second channel is a SODIMM. So typically we ship with memory down, the SODIMMs for additional expansion. And that allows for, a lower cost solution and more robust. We support Mini PCIe and M.2. Either one of these could be used for LTE expansion. They both have a USIM. The Mini PCIe also has a PCIe, which could be used for Wi-Fi. Like I said, the eMMC is available now with 3D NAND that can scale from 4 gig up to 256 gigabyte. And 2 SATA ports, standard SAT. One port can support SATA DOM. It's not shown here, but just want to point that out. All right, going back up to the network. So each network card has 2 LAN configurations using the built-in LAN on the Intel chipset. So those can be configured for 1 gig, 2.5 gig, or 10 gig. It also has 4 PCIe Gen 3 going to each connector, and then there's some miscellaneous I/O such as SMB bus, MDIO, and there's a few other things not listed here for sideband. So in this configuration, the extra small, we use the Marvell Peridot switch, Peridot X. So you have 2 2.5 gig ports that go back to the host, and you have 8 ports out the front. 2 are SFP, 4 copper, or 6 are copper. 2 of those copper actually support PoE plus power. And then going down to the management card, our micro BMC, that also has a connection back to the switch. So if desired, this would allow you to have a high-speed access back to the host, or you also could have access over the WAN port to the micro BMC. Depends on how the switch is configured. The switch also, the micro BMC also has NCSI interface to an IE210 for the management board. Another feature we added is there's also a M.2 with the SIM off the micro BMC. So if so desired, you could put an LTE card in there for like a Cat 1, Cat 3 for management. And the micro BMC has access to the SPI flash, so we can do it can verify the contents of the SPI flash before the Intel chip can access it, verify that it's been signed and secure, and also has access for updates. Has a USB interface between the micro BMC and the host, which is for virtual media, allows you to do updates, OS updates, and various things. Also access for all thermal and power management. Okay. Moving on, the next device is the small medium. The only difference between the two is really the CPU and memory and storage configuration. Otherwise, they're the exact same design, so they're all covered with one slide. This is based on Broadwell DE, 4-core, 8-core. Memory is either 16 gig or 32 gig. Storage, 200 gig or 400 gig. These on the front are based off the Broadcom Hurricane 3 switch. And again, all the main ports go through the switch. So you have 8 ports of PoE plus, 2 additional copper ports, and 4 SFP plus. And as far as the management, it's exactly the same as the extra small. On the right here, there's an expansion slot. So this allows for further expansion for either 2 PCIe type devices, 2x8s, or you could actually put in a larger expansion slot that would use by 16. And there's the block diagram for that. So it's kind of similar to the extra small as far as you have 2 options for LTE, either M.2 or Mini PCIe. You could do 2 SSDs that are SATA based. There's also an eMMC option if you want a low cost boot device. There are 2 channels of memory, 2 DIMMs per channel. And here you can see the Broadcom switch instead of the Marvell. It has two 10 gig ports back to the host. And like, as I mentioned, has the 8 ports of PoE plus. We have the built-in controller and manager on the board. Similar, it has our micro BMC, which also has access to the switch, which could provide access to the WAN and also back to the host. And same features as the extra small as far as console, front port management back of to the host, access to the SPI, and everything else. So the expansion is a little bit more. We do have a by 16 expansion port and a by 4 expansion port. So if I go back, yeah, you could. That's where these come into play. Okay, moving on. Now this is the large UCPE. This is a 2U tall enclosure. The major change here, the compute board is the same as the small medium. It just has a higher core count. So this is a 16 core. We use more memory, 64 gigabytes. Additional storage. We actually have 2 3.5 inch hard drives in addition to 100 gigabyte SSD. So this is based on a bigger Hurricane 3 switch from Broadcom. We have 32 ports of PoE plus and 8 SFP plus ports. And then the management on this side are equivalent to the small medium. This does have a dual redundant power in the back, and we do support dying gas. And on the top, we support the expansion modules from the small medium. So we have 16 lanes of PCIe up here for 2 by 8 PCIe modules or a single by 16. And this is the block diagram. So the notable differences here are really just in the, like I said, 16 core and the networking architecture here. Just a lot more ports. And additional PoE. So that's a quick overview from a very high level. So are there any questions on these slides?
I do have a quick question on max memory on the system you're showing right now.
Yes.
Was that what you listed in the previous chart, or can you actually go to larger memory?
I have to look it up, but you can go to larger memory on this. I believe it can go to 128. I mean, it's whatever the max that the chip can support, because it's just two channels, two DIMMs,
and whatever DIMMs the chip supports is fine.
Correct. Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a few questions on software support. So these are, switches, but also appliances with the switch chips in there. So is there plans to support ONI, ONL, and the Redfish management profiles for these devices?
So ONI and the Redfish management. Well, I'll be honest. Right now, we are installing the Switch SDKs on here. I don't have all the details of what's actually being installed on here. I need to talk to the team in Israel, but my understanding is we're putting the SDK on there with a few configuration changes and supporting customers that way at this point. But
yeah, let me try and answer that for us, Paul. So we know the Broadcom SDK pretty well, and so does the client in this case. So the client only asked for the Broadcom SDKs, and that's what we gave him. We can give an additional layer if needed for the software. But as far as the Redfish is actually the next thing we plan to implement on our BMC. Right now, the BMC is with IPMI-like functionality, and the next step on our roadmap is definitely Redfish. We see that as a crucial part of this offering, and that's the next step. We are trying to allow everything and try to get feedback from clients on what they would like to see as the software supported on both the switches and the BMC. So there is a question here, or a call to action in the sense of trying to gather more information about the software side, because we do have a few suggestions that we're going to share during the summit on what software to run on this, but the options are really endless.
Yeah, the only ONL and the Redfish would be obviously independent and prior to, SDK support of any switching silicon or anything else. They're lower level than that.
Correct.
Another question: the dying gas support on all of these platforms, is it supported only on the BMC port, or is it supported on other ports as well?
It's supported up well. So the BMC is what's sending it out currently. So on the extra small, that is the only piece that's actually held up. So if I go back to the block diagram on the extra small, in this case, we only have like an external power adapter. So we didn't want to design in all the extra capacitance and everything else here. So literally, we just, once the 12 volt starts to go down, we have a circuit that detects it, holds up the micro BMC, and it can send the packet out. It actually holds up the switch too. So if the switch is configured to allow the micro BMC to have access to the WAN port, it could go out. You pick the port you want it to go out.
Okay. What about on the larger designs where the switch chip takes more power?
So the small medium, we do the same thing. We only hold up the switch and the micro BMC. On the large, we hold up everything. And that's because the redundant power supplies we have the capacitance built in and also the warning that we need to hold the system up.
Okay, so in all designs, the dying gas message can go out the BMC port or any of the ports connected to the switch chips, correct?
Correct. Now, that's only if the switch is configured to allow the micro BMC to have access to those ports. So,
No, understood. No, that's very good. Thank you.
It's even more than that. Since the BMC is connected to the switch, you can actually reach the BMC even if the system is down through the switch or through its ports. So we were trying to give the most options possible to recover such a system.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Very good.
So repeat the last question about the Redfish related to the switch. I want to make sure I understand that and I researched that properly.
Well, there's default profiles for all groups. Well, I think it's been approved. It may not be. Tom, you can help me out with this, but there's Redfish management profiles for devices in the networking group, the telco group, and the default profile, which are minimal Redfish attributes, which I think it should be supported by the devices as part of the checkoff list too, to provide your testing results based on the default Redfish profiles for the device. So that's why I was just asking for Redfish support on these devices.
Okay.
By the way, you are of course welcome to provide any feedback or questions later on to myself, Boris, or Paul, or both preferably, and we'll be happy to hear your feedback and be happy to answer your questions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you would like, we can also expand on what is it that we're suggesting as the next step. Because what we're going to hopefully present at the show is the progress on this, including everything that Paul just mentioned, plus what we are suggesting as the next step. So if you would like, we can talk about it a little bit here, but we don't have to. Your choice.
I think we can get into a little bit of it. We do have some time, so that's fine with us.
Okay. So we were talking to a lot of the clientele of the telcos and Intel, and one thing that's standing out in this era of 5G and MEC is the fact that they're interested in additional acceleration, and Intel is pointing towards FPGAs to do that. Now we have done a reference design together with Intel, so we're counting that as an open design because it's a reference design from Intel that all Intel partners can get, and we're now asking Intel to contribute that to OCP, and that design will include an FPGA. And the idea is that the FPGA will be open for any code, for any third-party code, and we will help integrate it into that FPGA. So what we're trying to do is create a shell for FPGAs. We already have it running on some of the FPGAs, and it acts as an enclosure or as a shell, really, for third-party code. And what we're trying to do is to create a world where anybody that has FPGA code that they want to integrate into such a system will be able to dump it into our shell and actually get his or her code running on this device. So we're actually trying to leapfrog here. Not only are we saying that we want to add FPGAs as an add-on card, and this is, by the way, a question that came even last time that we presented a year ago from several clients, and we want to contribute a few designs of FPGA cards, but we also want to open up the actual cores inside for third-party contributions. That's a part of our vision, and it's a vision that we're following the vision of Intel and Xilinx on that front, and they're hoping that they'll be able to create an ecosystem of core developers that will be able to use this as a platform to write their code for whichever core they would like to see on such a CPE device. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do.
So the FPGA would be one of these slide-in cards that goes in the front? Is that the approach?
Not necessarily. It could be, but we actually have an expansion slot, a PCIe expansion slot, all the way from the medium size to large. We have a PCIe expansion slot that can take in an FPGA card, a standard PCIe FPGA card. So we're taking the Intel and Xilinx reference designs. We would like to contribute them, and we're in discussions with Intel and Xilinx about that now. They're already reference designs, meaning that if you're their partner, you can already get them. So they're pretty widely used, but we want to expand that beyond that and to contribute to OCP. It will be a standard PCIe card that adds on to the side of the chassis. There's a space there, and I think one of the slides shows that. That card will be the vehicle for third-party code integration.
Okay, just so I'm clear, I'm sorry. The FPGA card will be a reference design, but mechanically it will be produced in such a form factor that would fit into any one of these enclosures. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
All right, understood. Very good. Very good.
So maybe not the extra small. I don't know if it's...
Okay, maybe not the extra. Okay, that's fine.
On the extra small, you can stick it at the top and imagine it's the same thing.
Right. Okay.
I have a question. You mentioned, anyone could program it, right? Meaning you could get the IP from any third party. So, meaning is that going to be like very specific? Because what I've heard is, when you have multiple IPs, there needs to be a lot of integration work to make sure that the resources in the FPGAs are allocated appropriately. Is the assumption that there will be just one IP for that FPGA? Like
so
a single application?
You're absolutely right. This is a tedious task because if you want to tell people how to use how to use the FPGA, you need to give them the appropriate space, meaning you need to be very exact in what the netlist looks like and what the space looks like. And we plan to do that initially for the low end and ultimately for a few designs. So clients will have a few options to integrate into the low end FPGA or the high end FPGA, depending on how many gates they need. And we're very open in helping in the integration work. In fact, Silicom outside of OCP is already integrating 5 different third-party cores into our FPGA designs. So we hope to get that into OCP and to expand the work. And let me give you an example. There are companies such as Altiostar, ASOX, Parallel Wireless, all have cores for 5G RAN or interpretation of RAN traffic. And we would like their contribution to be such as on the white box, you'll be able to buy or to build the box and buy a license from them, and it will work seamlessly. And that's part of the idea where we're trying to create a spec that everybody could adhere to based on our experience with existing third-party cores that we're working with right now. We call that idea packet mover, and it's on one of the slides that we're showing. And the idea is to create a netlist and a size for low end, and a netlist and a size for high end for clients to design their cores to. And again, Silicom is very happy to help these guys integrate if needed.
I see. So you would have like a couple different options based on what you need. Okay.
Yeah, well, we're taking baby steps because we know this market is not that simple. So we're taking baby steps. We're starting one card, one package. Here's the netlist. Here's the size. Here's what you should try and program to. And again, the reason we want to present it at OCP is to hear people from different telcos, different ISPs say, okay, this makes sense, or no, this does not make sense, and to hear what their perception is.
So I brought up your slide that you have prepared, so it's on the screen now.
Thank you. So I think that the main message we're trying to send is we believe that trying to stabilize on an idea for the FPGA, how to integrate it, and what kind of space can be used inside the program is something that is needed because of a lot of turmoil about what FPGAs are, what can be done on them, and so on. And we're giving some examples. For example, here's a P4 core that you can put in there. Here's a 5G core, and it's all from third-party vendors. And we're hoping that the telco community will be able to tell us, this is interesting, this is not interesting, or maybe this is too complicated for us. And we're trying to get that feedback, and that's why we're trying to present that during the summit.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for Paul and team? Okay. Thank you.
Just a comment. They look like very good contributions. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thanks, Paul.
agreed.
Okay, I guess we can move to the next topic. Craig, do you
Yeah,
want
I sorry.
I'm sorry.
I want to apologize because we're in the middle of the conference, so we're going to drop off. I apologize again. We hope to see you all on the summit.
Sure, we'll see you at the summit. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. Cheers.
Okay, moving to our next topic. I don't think Mike made it. Craig, do you want to take some time to give an update or status on the OpenEdge subproject?
Sure, I'll cover what's the latest on the from the OpenEdge project. Uh, so, if for those who have been following the project, or if you haven't, either way, they've been working towards the first specification for the chassis, and the design files associated with that. And they held a workshop in Sunnyvale, which is the first face-to-face workshop, and it's meant to be. I think they wanted to have a 4 workshop per year cadence in that group. And basically the spec was gone through in, line by line for and we came up with, a list of questions from everyone and answered those, and ended up with a new rev of the specification. There were a couple other questions that came up on the mail list and ended up with another rev. And then that rev and the design package was submitted to the IC in kind of an accelerated fashion to try to get that done before the summit to have that approved. And so at this point, there's the spec is in final format, as well as the design package. And if anyone's interested, they can go check out the wiki on the Telco Open Edge subproject. I think that there's a little bit of a lag between some of the documents. The design package is the final form, but I think the specification is a couple levels down, but that should be updated in a couple of days. And so that's pretty much the latest going on with the Open Edge. But we should have the design spec approved either before the summit or either after, depending on what the IC thinks of the submission.
Craig, when I talk to people within my company about that spec, the first question that's out of almost everyone's mouth is, when are the items that go into the chassis going to come around? So,
right.
Is there anything you can say about that?
Yeah. So, the servers, have a draft spec for the servers, and unfortunately, at this time, they will be inspired rather than accepted. So basically, it'll just be a product spec for those. But one of the things that the ecosystem around the chassis, and very similar to the way we kind of treat that as the Open Rack. And so this is the version 1 of Open Rack, if you will, and then people can build different sleds and form factors to go into that. And so we have both Intel and AMD storage product, and from several different vendors that are also looking to build sleds for that format. And so we'll be producing the specifications of the 2 sleds that we have, both the 2U and a 1U sled. And then there will be others that will be presenting their specifications for their sleds. Does that help?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And it'd be a great topic to ask I think there'll be some presenters on those topics at the summit. I know there's one from Mika on the ecosystem and the work that's been going on with the other vendors for that as well.
Excellent. So I guess the thing that's kind of sticking in my mind, or the question I still have, and it's fine to say wait for summit, it's only a week.
Yeah.
is the ecosystem intended to generally have OCP inspired sleds, or is it just happens to be the case that the first one is inspired, but we'd expect sleds to be accepted as well?
Yeah. So, you know, if depending on who the provider of the specification is, some providers will be in a better position to provide an accepted solution versus an inspired solution or product, right? So in our case, we can't produce the design files due to the nature of our relationship with the board vendors, right?
Got it.
So depending on where they fit in that supply chain, we expect there to be accepted sled contributions, right?
But that makes sense. I think I picked up on the reasoning there, and I
yeah.
understand.
So we own all of the IP for the chassis. That's total. That's all of our IP, and we're giving that to the community, to the foundation, to provide a foundation, a building block to go for an open edge solution, or which we think will actually, as people start looking at that design, just like with OpenRack version 1, that was the 3 rack wide welded together thing versus a standalone rack. Version 2 was a standalone rack, and it started having more characteristics that allow more people to get on board. And so that's a very similar, that's the way we're approaching this. Is we've put a stake in the sand. This is version 1. Now, what would people like to see? And let's collaboratively create version 2 off of the version 1. And obviously with the the sleds and the parts that fit into that power envelope and space envelope, it's something that will come as well. And like I said, we hope we see it just like as the OpenRack version 1, version 2, and so forth. So we'd be happy for you guys to participate in the Open Edge and say what you'd like to see and how you'd like to work. And I think that you can have sleds that are accepted as well.
Okay, nice.
And as a matter of fact, I think there's even one statement in the charter that says if you're an adopter, your opinion on the matter outweighs anybody else who's kind of waving their hands in the air about what might be a good thing to do to ensure that we're meeting the needs of that's being shaped by the folks who would adopt it. Not saying that you have to adopt it, but as an adopter, your say would have a little bit more weight than just a random guy who thinks they have a good idea for a product. That's not the intention of it. So if that's all, I think our next topic then is about our plans for the summit. Let's see, how many would anybody like to say who was going to be at the summit? Obviously, I see Jeff and Tom are probably for sure. And then what about the other folks? Is there anyone who will be at the summit?
I remember the Silicom folks said that they were going to be there when they were presenting earlier.
Yeah,
So,
Paul. Right, Paul. I see Paul's on now. Yeah.
I'm still on. Right now, I've got to. I cannot go because of other commitments, but I know that Alad and Boris and I think someone else are going to be there.
Okay. Well, so one of the things that we would like to have going forward with the summit is, instead of having Sumitra and myself moderate all of the sessions, to then introduce, let other people moderate some sessions so that we can go visit other projects that may be of interest to us. And so I was kind of just putting the call out there that if anybody would be interested in that, to let us know, and we can work out some times and a schedule for that for folks from the call, or I mean from our project.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help out with that if you guys want.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
We kind of have a smaller group on tonight, so it's that's what I'm saying. A lot of the folks are the known ones, but yeah, you're not exactly the the new people that we're trying to get involved, but we welcome your help, Tom.
So, Paul here. I'm actually curious. How many people?
So what am I then? Am I the old people you're trying to get rid of?
Oh no. That's why I said we welcome your assistance. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Or Paul here. I had a quick question. So, does this?
Sorry.
This is the first time I've called into this. So, is this like a bi-weekly thing, or is this? And how many people typically call in for this?
It's a monthly call. Yeah, we have it every month. But then the schedules change. We shift between Wednesdays and Thursdays. Every month, every alternate month.
Right. This call.
Can I get an invite?
Oh yeah, but it is on the OCP calendar. Yep. So you can go and grab it in, or I can send you. That's Paul, right? Yes. I'm not sure if I have your email, but if I do, I'll look up. I can send you that link.
Okay.
Okay. Craig, do you have any other comment before we close? Or anyone else for that matter?
No, just looking forward to seeing everyone at the summit next week.
Me too. That'll be fun.
Same here.
Yeah.
It'll be nice weather.
Yes.
All right then. If no other comments, then we'll close it for the day. And thanks everyone for joining. And we will see you all next week. Have a good evening.
Great. Thank you, Sumitra.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Tom. Yep. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.